In Turkey during the 1990s, certain murder files began piling up on police desks. Some of these killings happened on the street, others inside the dark stairwells of apartment buildings, and some seemed to target victims completely at random. At first, investigators didn't believe these crimes were connected. But as the years passed and the files were placed side by side, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Different cities, different times, yet victims killed in the same way. And at the center of these cases was a single name, Yavuz Yapıcıoğlu, known by the nickname given to him by the media, the Screwdriver Killer. According to some police reports, he was responsible for 18 murders, but other claims suggest the number of victims may have been more than 40. The exact number is still debated today. But one thing is certain, whenever serial murders in Turkey are discussed, this case is still remembered as one of the darkest. Yavuz Yapıcıoğlu was born in 1967 in Adana, Turkey. He grew up in a large family with 9 siblings. Life was not easy. The family struggled financially and tensions at home were common. His father had started a relationship with another woman, which fractured the family structure. Yavuz eventually grew up with a stepmother. People who knew him during his childhood often described 2 very different sides of him. On one hand, he could be a successful student who caught the attention of his teachers. On the other, he sometimes became withdrawn and distant from those around him. The turning point in his life came during his high school years. After a serious argument with his family, he left home. He dropped out of school and moved to Istanbul. In Istanbul, Yapıcıoğlu began living in the Zeytinburnu district. For a while, he worked in the leather trade and even opened a small shop. But the business did not last long. The shop eventually closed, and his life became increasingly unstable. Then in 1992, his name appeared in a major criminal investigation for the first time. He was arrested in connection with a brutal murder in the Avcılar district of Istanbul. The case shocked the country. During the trial, the court ordered a psychiatric evaluation to determine his mental state. He was sent to a hospital for observation. Witnesses described his behavior there as extremely unusual. According to reports, he sometimes walked through the hospital corridors naked and claimed that he was Jesus. There were also records of him starting a fire inside the ward. Eventually, the psychiatric report concluded that he was not mentally competent. The court accepted the report and ruled that he could not be held criminally responsible. Yavuz Yapıcıoğlu was released. This decision would later become one of the most controversial legal rulings discussed in Turkey. After his release, the situation grew darker. Yapıcıoğlu's name began appearing in a series of violent incidents. According to witnesses, some of these attacks were completely random. In one incident, it was claimed that he attacked someone who had simply said good morning to him. In another case, he reportedly intervened in a street fight between 2 young men and killed both of them. One detail kept appearing in these attacks: the weapon, a screwdriver. Because of this, the media gave him the nickname that would follow him forever, the Screwdriver Killer. The violence was not limited to strangers. One day he went to his grandmother's house. According to accounts, someone there made negative comments about his mother. The argument quickly escalated. Yapıcıoğlu grabbed an ashtray and attacked his grandmother. The elderly woman died at the scene. For the family, this tragedy was devastating. When his mother learned what had happened, she suffered severe shock. Shortly afterwards, she died from a heart attack. After this event, whatever remained of the family bonds seemed to collapse completely. Between 1994 and 2002, a number of murders across Turkey began attracting the attention of investigators. Some of these killings appeared to share similar methods. In many cases, the victims seemed to be chosen randomly. Others followed brief arguments or sudden confrontations. Police records eventually connected Yapıcıoğlu to 18 murders. But some witnesses and researchers believe the real number could be much higher. Some estimates suggest more than 40 victims. If true, this would make the case one of the darkest serial murder investigations in Turkey's criminal history. In the early 2000s, following several new killings, police finally moved again. Yapıcıoğlu was arrested. This time, the court process was far more cautious. He was sent once again to the Forensic Medicine Institute for psychiatric evaluation. This time, most experts concluded that he was mentally competent. The court ultimately sentenced him to multiple life sentences. With his arrest in 2002, one of Turkey's darkest serial murder cases finally came to an end. But the case still leaves behind a haunting question. If the psychiatric report in 1992 had been different, how many of those later murders might never have happened? Today, the case of Yavuz Yapıcıoğlu is remembered not only as the story of a serial killer, but also as one of the most controversial cases in Turkey involving the justice system and psychiatric evaluations. And whenever serial killers in Turkey are discussed, one name still appears: the screwdriver killer.
Anlaşıldı. Ayrıca bağlı trafik unsurlarımız, ilk ekiplerimiz gerekirse vatandaşın tüm araçlarını trafiğe çekin.